What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. According to my sources, multiple sources have confirmed that the Cincinnati Bengals are in the Super Bowl. That does not even seem real. The Bengals are in the Super Bowl today, Super Bowl 56, going up against the LA Rams. I want to be previewing that matchup. Going to be talking about all things Bengals, talking about the Rams a little bit as well, and also be doing a autograph giveaway towards the end of this video, so make sure to stay tuned to see if you ended up winning the autographed card of Sam Hubbard for the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's a Bengals versus Rams Super Bowl 56 pregame special. It is still not seem real that the Bengals are in the playoffs. This seems too good to be true. It seems like I did not even wake up last night, and I'm still in my dream right now. But let's go ahead and get into it. And when you look at the AFC Championship game, when the Bengals defeated the Chiefs, coming back down from 18 points, something that wasn't really talked about, a ton because the Bengals won that game was the injury to CJ Uzomah. And CJ Uzomah, one of the leaders of the Cincinnati Bengals team, will in fact end up playing in this game, which I think is a major key to the Cincinnati Bengals in this game here. And when you look at Uzomah, he's a guy who's not going to get you a ton of, yards or touchdowns, something like that. Not nobody like a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins or even a Tyler Boyd. But when CJ Uzomah gets 35 yards more, the Cincinnati Bengals are 6-1 in games. And I think that's something that we need to look at as Bengal fans because, Uzomah, when he gets the ball, he's not going to, get a 20-yard catch every single time. But just the little things like that, 5-10-yard passes here and there, can really take some of the pressure off of, Jamar Chase going up against one-on-one against Jalen Ramsey, which obviously that is going to be a fantastic matchup as we head into the Super Bowl tonight. So with CJ Uzomah playing, I think that's very good for us. Let's see here. Nathan, I appreciate that. Yeah, good luck to the Bengals. It's going to be a good game, very good game. I honestly think we will get our first Super Bowl victory tonight against the LA Rams. And when you hear about CJ Uzomah playing, which is really good for the Bengals, something else, when you think about injuries, something I don't really think is being talked about enough is LA Rams tight end Tyler HIGBEE is out this game, which that is great for us because Tyler HIGBEE, he's one of the biggest contributors to this LA Rams offense. He has 61 receptions. That's the second most on the Rams this season on the team. He has 560 yards. That's the second most on the LA Rams team. And he also has 5 touchdowns. And this LA Rams team was already kind of injured a little bit, with Robert Woods, not playing in the game. But, because he's been out for the year for quite some time, that's what I tried to get Odell Beckham Jr. But when you have Tyler HIGBEE, who is also out, that is great for this Bengals team, who at times has looked great against covering tight ends, which is something we haven't really been good at in the past. But the past few weeks or so, we've been getting better at covering tight ends. But it's a good thing for us that Tyler HIGBEE is not going to be playing this game because it's one less player that I want to have to go up against who's a pretty good player. Yeah, the Bengals offensive line, they obviously have a really good game. And that's something else, when you hear about this Bengals offensive line, kind of getting that in just a second here. When the Bengals, they've given up over 50 sacks this season. And the Rams, they have on defense over 50 sacks this season. So it's a very good question. How can the Bengals contain this Rams defensive line? And an insane stat that I don't think has really been mentioned much at all, which is kind of mind-boggling considering how bad the Bengals offensive line is. You would think people would talk about it more. When Joe Burrow has been sat, let's see here. When Joe Burrow has been sat more than 3 times, the Bengals are 3-4. That is not good. And that really goes to show how important this offensive line play. They don't even have to play great. They don't have to play good. Just play average. Which that is a major thing. We are 3-4 when Joe Burrow starts for us this season, when Joe Burrow has been sacked more than 3 times. But look at Joe Burrow's record when the Cincinnati Bengals have been sacked 3 times or less. When Joe Burrow has been sacked 3 times or less this season, we are 10-2 with Joe Burrow as a starting quarterback this year. Significant difference, and I really think it's going to come into play tonight as we take on the LA Rams, who obviously has one of the best defenses, in the NFL. I think they have the most games with 3+ sacks of any team in the NFL, which is something very interesting. When you look at these guys like, Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, one of the best corners in the NFL. It's going to be tough, but I honestly like our chances. I'm not trying to be biased. I think we have a pretty good chance of beating them. So something else, that's a main reason why we need to protect Joe Burrow, because that stat when we are 3-4, when Burrow gets sacked more than 3 times, is horrendous. Some of the things that we can do to prevent some of these sacks from Burrow getting sacked is give the ball to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, he hasn't really been getting a ton of carries recently, but we've been winning, and that's all that matters. But when Joe Mixon gets 80 rushing yards or more, and Cincinnati Bengals are 6-0. I do not think that's a coincidence at all, because that's taking a little bit of some of the pressure off of Joe Burrow, and that's taking extra passing attempts that Burrow could be having and possibly getting sacked even more. Joe Mixon, he's not a guy who's going to be catching out of the backfield like a Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, some of those guys. But Joe Mixon, the last 5 games, has had 26 receptions. For Joe Mixon, that's honestly kind of crazy, because that's the most catches he's ever had in a 5-game span since he's been in the NFL. That's more catches in just the last 5 games than he had all of last season. And when you look at those last 5 games, like I said, when Joe Mixon has had 26 receptions the last 5 games, the most important stat out of what in that is that the Bengals are 5-0 in those 5 games. So I really feel like giving the ball to Joe Mixon, getting him some rushing attempts early on, and getting him more involved in the pass catching game. I would really like to see Chris Evans be more involved in the pass catching game. I've said that so many times the past month. Samaje Perine is not a guy who should be in there to catch passes out of the backfield. He's not that type of guy. You specifically drafted Chris Evans to be that guy, kind of like a replacement for Giovanni Bernard, and they're not using him properly. Out of the 3, Chris Evans, Joe Mixon, and Samaje Perine, I personally believe Chris Evans is the best pass catcher for our running backs, and it's not even close. So I would really like to see him getting some playing time in this game. Something else I don't really think is being talked about either is, when you look at when we drafted Drew Sample in the 2019 draft, that pick was horrible, being in the 2nd round. And it's one of those things, he's never going to live up to that 2nd round pick, expectation, I guess you would say. But I feel like to make that pick more valuable and more worth it, which is never going to be worth it, the Bengals, in my opinion, should be playing Drew Sample a little bit more as a fullback role. And I know we haven't really seen that in the past with the Bengals. The last fullback who really used a decent amount was Ryan Hewitt several years ago. And I know it's one of those things, type of deal, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I know you don't want to have, so many new plays and a different game plan when you have 2 weeks to prepare the biggest game of all these players' lives. But I would like to see Drew Sample be in a fullback at times to kind of give an extra blocker to Joe Mixon, or even Joe Burrow if he's going out for a play action pass or something like that. And I would really like to see Sample be at fullback. I think Mixon needs the ball early on, getting him some catches. I think that would really help us be able to contain this Rams defensive line. And it's very interesting when you see this, Bengals offensive line against the Rams defensive line. That is obviously one of the biggest, key matches as we head into the Super Bowl tonight. But something else I don't think is being talked about. When everybody talks about Joe Burrow getting sacked, and even when Joe Burrow gets sacked, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks pretty much the whole year this season. But the Bengals, in my opinion, I feel like the Bengals defensive line is very intriguing going up against this Rams offensive line. Matthew Stafford, it's very interesting. I feel like he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks the past decade or so. And I feel like if the Rams were to win this game, I feel like you can make a legitimate case that Matthew Stafford could now be a Hall of Famer if they were to end up winning the Super Bowl tonight. But Matthew Stafford, when he is not pressured this season with the Rams, his completion percentage is 71. Yards per attempt for a pass is 8.6. That's top 3. 43 passing touchdowns. That's top 3. 11 interceptions, and a pass rating that is also in the top 3. So he has 3 different stats that's in the top 3 when he has no pressure. When Matthew Stafford is pressured, his completion percentage drops to 53. That's an 18% difference between 71 and 53 when Stafford isn't pressured compared to when he is. His yards per attempt drops to 6.8. He has 4 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions. That is insane. And we have to get some pressure on Matthew Stafford. I think that would be tremendous for us, because when you look at Matthew Stafford, he is not mobile. I was talking to people the other day when I was doing some videos. Matthew Stafford is one of the very few pocket passers left in the NFL. He cannot escape out of the pocket guys like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. He cannot escape out of the pocket to prevent those sacks. So once you get Matthew Stafford, once you get hands on him, it's very likely that you will end up sacking him because he's not that type of guy who has that speed. Look at when the Bengals have played strict pocket passers this season. Look at the first game of the year when we played the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, we sacked him multiple times, and there were several times in that game where Kirk Cousins should have just threw the ball away and tried to get out of the pocket, but he was unable to because he's not fast. He's slow, and that's a very similar situation with Matthew Stafford. You look at our first meeting against the Steelers. It looked like Ben Roethlisberger had the worst game of his career against the Bengals, when we played them in Pittsburgh. We sacked Roethlisberger the most times we ever have playing against Roethlisberger during his time in the NFL. We sacked him, I believe, 4 times in that game. So when you look at our times when we have played against, strict pocket passers, guys who cannot escape out of the pocket, guys who cannot extend the play with his legs, we are phenomenal, and we tend to get pressure on the quarterback so many times. So the fact that we're playing one of those guys in the Super Bowl today, with Matthew Stafford being very, very slow, one of the slowest quarterbacks in the NFL, that's a huge advantage to us. And I think that's something that I personally believe needs to be talked about a little bit more. And, something else, when you get pressure on Matthew Stafford, more than likely, like I just said, there's an 18% drop in pass percentage for Matthew Stafford compared to when he isn't pressured compared to when he is. 4 touchdowns to 7 interceptions when he is pressured compared to over 40 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. If you get pressure on Matthew Stafford, it's unlikely he's going to play good, obviously with those stats I just mentioned, and that's more likely going to mean we're going to be able to contain Cooper Kupp. I feel like this is one of the biggest things in this game here. Everybody's talking about how we have to contain Cooper Kupp and everything like that, or Chidobe Awuzie will be on Cooper Kupp. I don't know where people get the idea that Awuzie is going to be on Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is a slot receiver. He has over 1,000 yards this season in the slot. We have one of the best slot corners in the NFL in Mike Hilton, so it's a good chance Mike Hilton will be on Kupp more than Chidobe Awuzie. And when you look at Cooper Kupp, he has been absolutely phenomenal this year. No wide receiver has ever won the MVP, but I feel like there was every year. This year definitely could have had the case for him. He ended up having more MVP votes than Joe Burrow, which is honestly kind of surprising. But Cooper Kupp had the most receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns of any player in the NFL. Basically had like a triple crown for a wide receiver this year. But if we give up 70, 80 yards to Cooper Kupp, I'm 100% perfectly fine with that. I'm okay with that. I'm content with that. But once you get up to the 100 range, then that is a major issue, a major problem, and our chances of winning drop so much. This is a mind-boggling stat. It's honestly insane. Cooper Kupp, this season has had 12 different games with 100 yards. That alone in itself is absolutely incredible, and proving that he's had one of the best seasons ever for wide receiver. 12 different games with 100 yards. You look at his stats, when you look at the Rams' record when Cooper Kupp has 100 yards, receiving yards in the game, the Rams are 11-1. So the Rams are 11-1 when Cooper Kupp gets 100 receiving yards in a game. That is an amazing stat, and that's something, if Cooper Kupp is able to manage 100 receiving yards in this game, it's going to be very hard for the Bengals to end up winning this game. And even go back in 2019. In 2019, the Cincinnati Bengals ended up playing the LA Rams. I believe that was the London game we played. This was, when we still had Dalton, it was Zach Taylor's first year. And we were still searching and looking for Zach Taylor's first win as a head coach in the NFL. And I know our roster is a lot different compared to 2019. But in that game, Cooper Kupp had 10 receptions for 220 receiving yards and a touchdown. That is freaking crazy. Anything over like 14, 15 yards per reception is really, really good. But the fact that he had 22 receiving yards per reception in that game is amazing for Kupp, and further proving why he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. So I feel like if we're able to get pressure on Matthew Stafford, like I mentioned, that could really eliminate kind of Cooper Kupp from this game as well. And if you eliminate Matthew Stafford's ability to play like he's able to when he's not pressured, like if you take Matthew Stafford's great play away and have him pressured, he's going to play bad, and he's going to throw bad passes. throw bad passes, not likely Cooper Kupp's going to get many receptions. So that would help us so much in this game. And when you look at it here, there's some other very interesting, key matchups. Key matchups, obviously, everybody's talking about, Jalen Ramsey and Jamar Chase, Chase this, Ramsey that. There's an opportunity, Chase is one-on-one, Burrow has to throw to Ramsey. But it's interesting because, yes, that's an amazing matchup. It's going to be a great matchup between one of the best receivers and the best corners in the NFL. But at the same time, look at our wide receivers and the Rams corners. We have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. Lots of Bengal fans have said it heading into the season. And after this year, they've pretty much just helped our case that the Bengals really do have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. Okay, yes, there's Jamar Chase coming up against Jalen Ramsey. But after that, who do the Rams have at corner? They don't have anybody great. We have the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL today, and Tyler Boyd, probably, debatably the most reliable receiver that we have. T. Higgins, one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL today. And you look at T. Higgins, I believe he's 6'4" or something like that. The corner he's going up against is like 5'9" or 5'10". So he has like a half a foot advantage on the corner that's going to be going up against T. Higgins. That is a great thing for us, in this game. I feel like, the talk of Jamar Chase and Jalen Ramsey heading into this game is really I'm not going to say, being talked about too much because it's some of the best players in the league, but I guess basically it's being talked about a little too much because people aren't talking about T. Higgins. People aren't talking about Tyler Boyd, which in my opinion, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys has a fantastic game, one of the best games as a Bengal. In their secondary, they brought back Eric Weddle, who came out of retirement. So they have some of these guys who are up there in age and, honestly not that good. So I feel like that would be, great for us. Our Boyd and Higgins going up against their not so good corners. That's a very interesting matchup for us that needs to be talked about more. And another interesting matchup that I'm very excited about is when you look at the Rams offense tackles. They have Havenstein and they have Andrew Whitworth, the former Bengal that's been with us for so many years now. Been with us for over a decade before he ended up, signing with the Rams. And, when you look at this, Sam Hubbard, he's a guy who's mainly known for, getting a run stuffer, going to make some great plays, against the run. But this year, he's really been phenomenal, going up, on the quarterback and getting some sacks, which is something we haven't really seen a ton of him in the past. Trey Hendrickson, I was completely wrong about his signing. I thought it was an overpay at first. I am so glad I was wrong. He's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL this season. And when you look at, Hubbard and, Trey Hendrickson going up against some of the best offense tackles in the NFL, like Andrew Whitworth and Havenstein, like I mentioned, that's going to be a great matchup. Because that's some of the best against the best. And because, if we win that battle, if our defensive ends get some sacks and pressures, those stats I already mentioned with Matthew Stafford, that would definitely help our cases and chances to end up winning this game against the LA Rams. And when you look at it, if they are able to keep the pocket clean for Matthew Stafford, that really helps their chances to win the game. So it's really interesting when you look at some of these matchups. There's so many different scenarios, so many different stats. If this happens, their chances of winning are so much higher. If this happens, their percentage of winning is so much higher. So there's so many cool things looking into this game as the Bengals take on the Rams today. In Super Bowl 56. If you're just now tuning in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're not new to the channel already, I would really, really appreciate it. So, I've kind of thought about, key matchups, how we can contain Cooper Kupp. We have to get pressure on Matthew Stafford. How we can prevent the Rams, sacking Joe Burrow. And so some of the keys to the game, in my opinion, is very interesting, is we have to pressure Matthew Stafford, like I mentioned. When Matthew Stafford has pressure, he is a completely different quarterback. When he's pressured, he is horrible. So if we pressure him, I like our chances so much. Something else, I would kind of feel like don't fixate on passing or running, in the offense. I feel like that's something, Zach Taylor kind of did, when you look at our first meeting, our game, against Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Because early on first downs, we were running with Joe Mixon constantly, even though, we have to take advantage. We have to, try to be aggressive to come back when we're down 18 points. We were able to win that game, but the coaching in that game was kind of questionable. We cannot fixate on running. We cannot fixate on passing. We fixate on passing, Burrow's going to throw for 50 times, and he's going to get sacked like 7 or 8 times. That's what happened last year, and that's what ultimately led to him getting injured against the Washington football team last season. If we fix it in running, if we can't get anything going, there's no point in doing it. That's kind of like last in that championship game, we got fixated in the running. We had to get something going at some point, and as the game continued, we were finally able to stop running with Mixon. Burrow basically took over the game and helped us, come back from 18 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, we got the Bengals winning 27-24, McPherson game-winning field goal. It's a very interesting pick. That's basically the same thing I have said since I think Tuesday now. But some other keys to the game, like I said, don't be balanced. We cannot give up sacks, like I mentioned. When Burrow gets sacked more than 3 times, we are 3-4. When Joe Burrow gets sacked 3 times or less, we are 10-2. That is a significant stat. That is a major stat, and that is something as the game continues and you watch the game. That's a stat that you're going to keep at the back of your mind and say, if he gets sacked more than 3 times, there's a good chance the Bengals lose. But also, if he gets sacked 3 times or less, there's a good chance the Bengals win. So it's interesting. I mean, we cannot get behind early in this game. We got behind early on against Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, 18 points. That cannot happen this game. We got down, we were down 14 points, 3 different occasions when we took on the Kansas City Chiefs in our home field to win the AFC North in that game when we came back and won. That cannot happen because when you look at this Rams team, if you're down 14 points early on, they have the best defense we've played this season. They have the best defensive line we've played this season. They have one of the better quarterbacks we played this season. They have one of the best, overall rosters, offense and defense, one of the best coaches we've seen. So if we go down by 10 or 14 points, it's one of those things that's like you can never say it's over when you have Joe Burrow as your quarterback, but the odds of us, if we're down 14 points against the Rams coming back is much, much slimmer than it was, being down 18 points against the Chiefs because the Rams have 100 times better defense and the Rams have, in my opinion, I think an overall better offense at times more than the Kansas City Chiefs. So we cannot get behind early. And one of the things, if we get behind early, if it's near the end of the third quarter and start of the fourth quarter, a stat that has been brought up so many times, Zach Taylor is 1-25 when he is trailing to begin the fourth quarter. That is a stat that I'm very concerned about. I think it's going to be a close game, but if we're trailing at the end of the third quarter, I am going to get a little bit nervous because it's one of those things. The Bengals are capable of coming back from behind, to begin the fourth quarter, but it's going to be very hard to do. And that stat was Zach Taylor, 1-25 as a head coach when trailing to begin the fourth quarter. That's not something to be encouraged or happy about. And that's one of the few things that Zach Taylor, despite being phenomenal this season, and, should have been, coach of the year, something that he has still really yet to do much this season is come back from behind to begin the fourth quarter. We've come back from behind in the third quarter, and tied it up at the end of the third quarter, maybe even took the lead in the third quarter. When it comes to the fourth, that's completely different. And, when you look at this game between the Bengals and the Rams, talking about this, it's just so weird. It does not seem like the Bengals in the Super Bowl. That is something I never thought I would say heading into this year. The Cincinnati Bengals have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. That is absolutely mind-boggling. And it's insane that we have a chance to bring the Lombardi Trophy to Cincinnati. It's awesome. And when you look at this game, when you look at the Rams, you look at the Rams have everything to lose in this game. And what I mean by that is the Rams were projected to be in the Super Bowl. Everybody had them as a Super Bowl pick. They might have, some people might not have had them winning it, but most people had them at least being in it. And, when they traded for Matthew Stafford, the Rams are going to win it. They traded for Matthew Stafford. They've traded for Jalen Ramsey. They signed Odell Beckham Jr. They traded to get Von Miller. It's now or never for the Rams. The pressure is on them. They're playing in their home stadium in the Super Bowl. If they win, yes, the Rams won the Super Bowl. But if they lose, it is going to be crazy for the Rams because there's so much pressure. When you have some of these guys getting up there in age, Von Miller, I believe he's a free agent coming up soon at the end of the season. Odell Beckham Jr. is a free agent at the end of the season. There's a chance, very good chance, one of the best offensive tackles in NFL history, Andrew Whitworth, could possibly retire, win or lose, after this game for the LA Rams. So when you look at it, you don't realize how many more chances, you don't know how many more chances the Rams are going to have getting the Super Bowl in their home stadium. It's so crazy. All the pressure is on them. I know it's hard to say, the Rams have everything to lose if they lose this game, and the Bengals have nothing to lose. I know it's a Super Bowl. I know it's a championship game. And I know I'm going to sound kind of crazy. The Bengals have nothing to lose here. I know if you lose, it's so upsetting you're going to lose in the championship game. But nobody picked us being in this position. Nobody gave us a chance. Time and time again, game after game after game, people will not shut up. Oh, the Bengals don't have a chance. Or there's an excuse somewhere. Oh, well, they played Ryan Tannehill, so he's not a good quarterback. That's why they beat the Titans. The Chiefs choked by 18 points. The Bengals didn't come back. The Chiefs just sucked. Every single time we prove people wrong. Every single time we basically give a big middle finger to people who have doubted us the whole entire year. They keep on saying, oh, well, they're not good at this, they're not good at that. And they keep making excuses for us. Tonight is going to be the day where people can just shut up and realize that the Bengals are the best team in the NFL. Nobody picked us to be in this position. Nobody picked us to really, win a playoff game except for Bengal fans. And so even if we lose this game, we still, can be here several times in the next couple of years when we have Joe Burrow locked up for 3 more years, Jamar Chase for 4, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon locked up for several more years, Logan Wilson, Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson for 3 more years. When you have guys like that, we can be here again. Regardless if we win or lose, we will be in the Super Bowl at least 1 or 2 more times by the time Joe Burrow's rookie contract ends. And that's not something you can say for the Rams because all these guys are getting up there in age. It's now or never for the Rams. And the Bengals, if we lose, it's a great season, the best season I've ever seen. And it's been the best season being a Bengal fan ever. And the fact that they have a chance to win a Super Bowl and nobody picked them to is freaking amazing. So it's going to be so interesting with this game. I think Nathan, commented earlier. I have the same score prediction, 27-24. The Bengals will beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. Evan McPherson game-winning field goal. You've seen it so many times this year. Who's to say it's not going to happen one more time? This has basically kind of been like a Cinderella story for the Bengals this year, or underdog, team this year. And to end it on such a great note, a possible Evan McPherson game-winning field goal would be freaking amazing for us. We've seen it so many times. We saw it against the Titans. We saw it against the Chiefs in the regular season, Chiefs in the playoffs. The Vikings game, his very first regular season game with the Bengals. And if he does it tonight, the Bengals will be Super Bowl champions. It does not seem real at all. It's like a shock moment. I feel like it would definitely hit me, regardless if they win or lose tonight. It's going to be very emotional, and it still does not seem real. The Bengals are playing in the Super Bowl today. I thought it was going to happen soon, but I did not think it was going to happen this soon. So Bengals over the Rams, 27-24, with an Evan McPherson game-winning field goal. That about does it for this video. The Sam Hubbard autograph card giveaway winner is Caden.Krumsky on Instagram. I'll message you the details, about the giveaway, you winning it and everything. But thank you all so much for watching. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. And next time I see you all doing a live video, hopefully the Bengals will be Super Bowl champions. It does not seem real. Thank you all for listening once again. And thank you all, and I'll see you next time on the Sports 2 Hein Show.